this year with my class on placement, part of my topic. So when I went into school, my class teacher told me that the topic I was going to be doing was India, which sounded really exciting at first, but then I realised the school had never done it before and didn't have a single book. So I had my work cut out to begin with. It was quite daunting at the beginning, but once I got into it, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay. First of all, it seems like a really broad topic and I had no idea where to start. So the first thing I did was try and talk to the class teacher. My class teacher this year was invaluable. She was such a support. She never gave me the answers or provided me with just a lesson or what to do, but she was great on giving me guidance, and also she knew where the children were at, so that was great. I also wanted to start with the children. One of the first things I did was we made a class mind map talking about what we already knew about India, and then as a class we formed a list of questions about what the children wanted to know. So there's a few ideas up there on that slide, and I was actually really impressed with some of the things that the children came up with. What I did after we'd made this list was I printed the questions out and it became part of our role display. I didn't want to just give the children the answers to these questions, but I had some post-its that were in a part of the classroom that the children knew, and when they found out the answer to one of these, they could go up and add that on. So that was quite exciting because some of the questions had more than one answer, so it meant it ran through the whole topic. Not all of these things were actually directly taught as part of the topic, but the children did some research and there were plenty of books available in the classroom that the answers would have been in had they looked. Okay, so that was where I started off. As well as an integrated planner, we had to do a literacy planner. I spoke to the teacher about what focuses she wanted me to take, and she told me that they really needed some development on different types of writing, and also she felt that their talking and listening was quite poor, both in listening to the teacher and in talking and listening with each other. So I had to look at some ways to do that, and I also wanted to try and feed some literacy through the topic and weave those two together. This is one of the examples of the writing that I did with the class. I really wanted to make the writing relevant and so that the children could see the purpose. So for our social studies, we looked at some of the food some of the popular food in India, and we came across this drink, which is like a smoothie or a yogurt type thing called mango lassi. What we did was we actually made the mango lassi one day, and we did that in groups, and they got to try it. And the next day, when the children came in, we wrote the recipe for that. So we talked it through and made a list of all the ingredients that we used. We talked about the methods that we'd used, and then the children wrote the recipe themselves so that they could take it and make it again at home. So I felt that that worked really well, and it was great because the children knew what they were writing about. They understood it because they'd already done it, and it meant that they could then take it home and show their parents what they'd been doing. This is another example of the writing that we've done. I've been asked to cover some RE, but as the world religions are kind of covered through the curriculum anyway, we decided to focus on the festival of Diwali. We started off by looking at some videos that I found on BBC Learning Zone, which is a really helpful website. It's got videos on a whole range of things if you're ever looking for something like that. So we started off with that as a stimulus. There was one particular video where it showed children preparing for Diwali, and we watched this, and then the children wrote a to-do list as if they were about to celebrate the festival. I mentioned that the teacher wanted me to work in some talking and listening. The children were not good at listening to each other, so one of the first things that we did was rearrange the classroom, and we decided on some combinations of children that we wanted to work together and decided who wasn't to work together. So first of all, we put them in some groups. We went with groups of 4, as this is the kind of optimum number for group work, and the children were sitting in those groups, so it meant it was really easy to add little bits of group work in and discussion as we went along. So the children came up with their own group names, and there's a couple of those up there. I was quite impressed with their alliterations, and they'd taken those from the books that they'd already started looking through for their India topic. Some of the talking and listening activities that we did, one particular thing was we looked at the River Ganges, and we came across the idea of the government wanting to put in a dam at the top of the River Ganges. So what we did was we split into our groups. We talked about what would be the pros and cons of this dam, and the children discussed that in their groups. We then came back together and we had a wee bit of a class debate, and after we'd watched a couple of videos about it so that they understood exactly what was involved, and at the end we had this class debate and we imagined that we were the Indian government and we wanted to see what would happen if it was our choice. Would we build a dam or would we not? And the answer was no, we wouldn't, but I'll not give you all the details for that. So I felt that that worked really well, and it was good that the children were in their same groups for most things. We did split them up and mix them up at some point, but it was good that they were all in those tables, and it meant we could just go in and out of our group work whenever it suited. Another thing that I did with this class was I tried to set up a link between a school in India and my class. So I'd emailed some schools in Delhi, which is the capital city, and I struggled at first and I felt a bit downhearted when I got some emails from the legal authorities telling me that I'd emailed some schools that I shouldn't have, but eventually 2 schools got back to me and it worked out really well actually. So that was another example of us writing for a purpose. We started off by composing an email as a class, talking about some things about our school, because we wanted to know the differences in the school and we wanted to know how the children in India spent their time. So in our groups the children brainstormed some ideas that they wanted to include in that email, and then as a class we composed it and sent it off and waited patiently for a reply, which we got. So we sent a few emails back and forth with these schools and the children really loved it. It was great to have the first-hand information. Some of the tips that I would use for my behaviour management: I had a timer which I used constantly, because sometimes I hadn't always planned for the group work, but if an idea came up which the children could discuss, we just set 2 minutes on the timer and off they went and had a wee discussion before we came back together. Another reason that the timer was so important was that the children would sometimes get off task, whereas if they knew they were on a limit, it meant they kept more focused, and that worked quite well. The children had wanted to learn some words in Indian languages, so we learned how to say hello in Indian, which is namaste. I used this because, like I said, the children weren't always the best at listening to the teacher. So we had worked out that when I shouted hello primary 4, they all responded to me and they loved it. It was hilarious at the start, and then they got into the habit of it. So that's some of the things that I did with the literacy. I just wanted to show you this photo and tell you about some of the other things we did. We had some food tasting, and we did a bit of drama with Drama and Sita. This was one of my favourite parts. We had someone in to teach us some Bollywood dancing, which was such a laugh. But it's not really relevant to literacy, but I just wanted to show you. At the end of my topic, once I left, the class teacher decided she was going to collate some feedback for me, so the children all got a form, and it had a section for each of the 4 capacities. The children were asked to put in some examples of where they feel they've developed in these capacities, and then the teacher sent me these out, and it was really lovely to read the forms back, and the children had written maybe some things that they would have liked to change about the topic and their favourite parts, and these are just some of the examples of what children had written, so you can have a read for that on your own. So that's everything from me. I hope that's been some help to you. Alright.